Hang around for this story, though. Deep fakes are rampant online. We've seen news stories of celebrities and politicians, everyday people who have posted images online and they've been impacted. In December 2017, a Reddit user calling himself Deepfakes released open source code which was used to create basic pornography. Now, with modern apps, deepfake images can be created in minutes.
According to a recent Security Hero report, deepfake pornography makes up 98% of all deepfake videos online, and 99% of those targeted in deepfake pornography are women. An American Sunlight Project study found that women in Congress are around 70 times more likely to be targeted by such content than men, which isn't that surprising when we look at the patterns in the long history.
I'm happy to say joining me live now is History Uncensored host and Managing Editor Bianca Nobilo. Bianca, thanks so much for your time. We think deepfakes are such a modern issue, but you found that this may have been a problem for a couple of hundred years, perhaps.
This fascinated me and it really surprised me too. And it's great to be with you, Laura. I love your show. So I host History Uncensored, and I've been a subject of deepfakes being made without my consent, like so many women out there, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, based on what the new studies suggest. So I thought, let's trace this back. Let's find out when it starts. So naturally, we know it's happening with AI, and we know it happened with Photoshop. But actually, when you go back to the earliest days of photography, so we're talking after photography's been invented in 1839, manipulation is there almost from the start. And I'm sure it won't surprise you to learn that the target of that manipulation is often creating deepfake photographs and deepfake nudes. I found in the newspaper archive a number of examples in the 1800s of women's heads being chopped off decent photographs and being put onto nude photographs. Wow. There were Vice Squad busts happening in New York and elsewhere in the world trying to get a hold of this problem. And even before that, we can see evidence of where this comes from in political pamphlets, from Marie Antoinette to Catherine the Great to the Romanovs before the revolution.
Wow. So what we're looking at just their side of screen, these funny looking, almost looks like cookies before they're baked. Is that
yeah,
17th century porn that we're looking at?
So I think what we were just, there we go. Okay. So this is the Venus of Willendorf. This is fascinating, Laura. This is the oldest representation of a nude form in human history. This is about 40,000 years old. So the reason I included this in my research, right, is that we can see the exaggerated characteristics. We can see the breast, the abdomen, the hips. At this point in human history, and we know this from cave art, which is really very raunchy, sex and nudity is not anything to be remarked about. It's not shameful. It's just a natural part of the human existence. So in order to identify why deepfakes and nude deepfakes become this political tool, particularly used against women, you have to trace it back to, well, when did nakedness or nudity become shameful or titillating to be used as a weapon? And really that happens with the advent of Christianity, the fall, Adam and Eve. And you see that starting in the medieval period. And even if you think of famous figures like Joan of Arc, in her trial, she was accused of sexual misconduct. And you see this in witch trials too. They're painting mental deepfakes of nudity and this kind of behavior before the actual pixels and images exist. And then as soon as they have that technology, be it print and pamphlets or photography or AI, it's then used to make that purpose look more real to a wide audience.
Wow. So before the advent of Christianity, women's bodies were celebrated. I think they still are celebrated, but it was seen as something that was, you know, part of everyday life. And then the advent of Christianity brought a shameful aspect to it, that there's a procreation. There shouldn't be, well, there was less of a focus on pleasure.
This is such a good point. And absolutely, this is what the medievalists that I spoke to revealed to me as well. And it's not just Christianity. We do see that in indigenous societies, there's often not that shame around nudity. So a deepfake nude wouldn't work as a weapon or a tool. It's not just Christian societies, obviously. I focus mainly on Judeo-Christian societies, but it's exactly that. The purposes of sex become very restricted. Women's bodies in particular become a source of potential embarrassment or exposure. And by threatening somebody's sexual purity or reputation, it becomes a very simple way to try and take them down. And really what's underneath this, Laura, that I discovered is the body has functioned as a proxy for legitimacy. So kind of the thinking goes, if you can't control your body, if you're not sovereign over your body and what people do to it, why should you have control over anything else? And that's why it's used as a weapon against influential and powerful figures in particular, not just women, sometimes men, like Julius Caesar's an example, Nicholas II's an example, but it's usually to criticize them for being too effeminate or weak. For women, it's quite different.
Bianca, you are such a delight. I'm so glad to have you a part of this show today. What a fascinating history of deepfakes. Just when we think a problem is new, well, you come along and remind us that it's not. Absolutely.
It's age-old.
I know you're working on the history of NATO as well. We'll talk to you about that next week because it is absolutely critical at the moment, very relevant to